Okay, then we can start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Today's forecast, mostly cloudy with steady rain of games. Brought to you by Fragments of Silicon.
Guess you went a little long there.
Yeah, and I misspoke too.
Yeah, you paused, and that's usually my go, so...
Yeah.
Oops.
Never mind.
Damn straight.
All right. Well, if that's the worst gaff we have this week, I'm all for it. Like,
Give it time.
Plus now
He
I can
knows
use that
us.
one again. Plus now I can use that one again and maybe do it right next time.
Indeed. So, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, is the regular crew. Golix,
Hi.
Petty Fan,
I do music and stuff.
and Forget Words.
What are words?
Anyway, Twilight,
Hello?
were you sure you weren't connected? Okay.
I just, I don't
Anyway, and Ogre.
I'm just a pretty face in the crowd. Well, not sure about pretty, but I'm a face in the crowd.
Okay, then.
Geez. Right, so let's get to the news. Twilight, why don't you go?
know. Well, I'm just about over my cold from last week. I've been having small coughs now. And it's gotten colder over here. Tire pressure kind of dropped on my wheels just a few days ago. I'll take care of that. But to top it all off, we got a water leak.
Oh boy, those are not fun.
Water
No,
leak
they-
coming in or water leak going out?
It's going out. It's outside.
Like your
Our-
pipes are leaking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the old plumbing that we've had since, I don't know, since the 40s, I think, here or something like that.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've been, I think the worst part of it is that they're buried underground and we've had to have them digged up. And and we thought we had it fixed yesterday, but then we discovered today there was another leak. So we work on that. And I think we'll have that problem solved tomorrow, hopefully.
I mean, it could have
That's-
been worse. It could have been like me and you had a pipe burst in the wall.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
Trust me, it is.
Yeah,
We've
That's
done-
why we
we've
have
dealt with it
wooden
twice.
flooring now.
yeah. Well, besides that, I've been playing out West for Sunday, and that's about it.
Alright, Golix?
Well, the entire state is pouring rain today. It was supposed to be yesterday, but it mostly held off. So that's been wonderfully fun. I picked up Fire Emblem Warriors yesterday for this, well, not yesterday, a couple days ago for the Switch, and I've been having fun with that, although I haven't had as much time to play it as I wanted to. But it's interesting to. I haven't actually played any of the like mainstream Warriors games, so it's interesting to compare it to Hyrule Warriors and see how they both implemented parts of their home series while also including traditional Warriors game stuff. And the urge in me to buy a PS4 or something is kind of rising because there are, I think a lot of the other Warriors games are on there, including like some of, I think there are Gundam ones probably on
The Gundam
PS
ones
at the
haven't
store.
been moved has not been moved from the PS3. So if you want to play Gundam Warriors, you need a PS3.
Well, that just makes me a little bit grumpy.
Yeah.
But also, I kind of want Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, and now there's a new one coming out soon called Hacker's Memory that's a sequel to that, I think, that I want, because Digimon Links is just making me hungry for a good Digimon game.
There's also Digimon World.
Yeah, and that's on the network and stuff.
That's physical release on PS4.
Oh, Next Order, you mean?
Yeah.
I thought you meant the original,
Nope.
which is also a good game, but yeah. So yeah, I might look into trying to set aside some money for that at some point, and or put some of it on my Christmas list. I don't know. That's about all I got.
All right, Ogre.
Oh God. Let's see. Recordings are a mixed bag at the moment. Everything mostly goes fine, but I think it's a mix of Naka's older computer starting to show its age a little more, and the more graphically intense games being played. But we've had some recording issues here and there.
Yeah.
Apparently, he said the same thing happened with Nier.
Yeah.
So I'm not really that surprised, and since Doom's a lot more intensive,
Nothing
they
serious.
seem to
I
be.
hope.
Well, we got to record an entire video again, but
Oh boy.
I think it's basically the computer saying it's about time for an upgrade here.
Yeah.
I guess at least it's a stage-based game, so you can do that easily.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We were actually supposed to record today, but to make up for that, but he had other pressing matters, so we pushed that to Friday.
Mm.
He had to pick up his clothing from the dry cleaners.
Ah ha 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 ha. Get out.
But let's see. I beat Superstar Saga over the past week or so. It holds up pretty well, honestly. I'd rather like it. I haven't beaten the Bowser's Minion thing, but I'm not really invested in that.
Because that involves you getting amiibos.
I don't think you actually need the amiibos.
You don't need the amiibos.
Mm.
That's just like a quote-unquote optional thing, so you're not hurting if you don't have amiibos. It's just more of a... it's a side story I don't really need to get, so
Mm.
why bother, that kind of thing. And, let's see, what else? Well, don't know how to say it other than just say it, but I got a new car.
Yay. Like
Hey.
new or new to you car?
It's new to me. It's a used car, but it's a Nissan Altima 2014, so...
I had a Nissan once. It was pretty okay.
My mom
My
drives
mom
a
had to take
Nissan.
her. This is actually kind of funny how it happened, but I'll get to that in a second. But my mom had to take her Nissan into the dealership to check something out, and while we were there, they had that car there on a lease, loan, own, whatever that crap's called. So we decided to get that and turn in the old one with it. And so now, yeah, we got another Nissan Altima, which the damn thing endeared itself to me right away, because as I was driving to Naka's, second time I drove it the whole time we've had it, as I was driving it to Naka's and it was raining, the damn right windshield wiper came loose and just flew off into the middle of the road. And I thought, okay, that's a little hilarious.
I'm like,
You and me are gonna be good friends, Car.
Yeah. The best part is the car did it for a car that's a 2014 model. It had less than 2,400 miles on it.
Mm.
it's not bad.
Yeah. But the reason my mom had to go take her car in is because the right rear tire was making a squeaking noise, and it sounded like the suspension, because every time he hit a bump it would squeak.
Mm.
Turns out the damn squirrels around here hid a walnut up in there. So when she had it parked out in the driveway one time and none of us were there, a squirrel snuck up and shoved a walnut into the car, and that's what was causing the squeaking sound.
Yes, public service announcement for all of our listeners who live in places where it gets cold. Animals like the areas like under and around cars, and especially above like the tires and stuff. So keep an eye out there for when you're getting in the car.
Also, apparently check for nuts.
And nuts too.
Yeah. But let's see. But that's pretty much all I got. So.
Hmm. All right. Well, Pettyfan, you're up.
I've had to make a lot of phone calls this past week about, keeping my insurance because that's a whole fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah, having fun with that shortened window and less people being paid to help with it.
Well, different insurance. Mine's Medicaid.
Uh,
And yeah, basically now every time I have to renew, I need to apply for Social Security. Yay. And that is possibly the longest, most tedious thing I've ever done in my fucking life. But it's all taken care of. So hopefully I don't have to deal with that for another year. Unless they accept me for Social Security, and then yay. Other than that, not a whole lot's been going on. Just been kind of doing stuff and things.
Uh-oh. Careful using that phrase. Mac might have copyrighted it without telling you.
I can suck it. Anyway, I think that's it from me.
Okay. My go.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess I gotta give my weather report because it being the fall, we do that. It's something other than hot, 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 hot.
Send help. I'm debating cutting off my skin. Kind of hot.
Hey, normal Florida thing has more than hot, 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 hot too. Sometimes it has hurricane or flooding or alligators.
But usually it's just really thick soup. Like it gets humid as fuck outside.
The air soup. Send help.
Yeah. Like anyway, yeah. It like a cold front just came in like today, or maybe yesterday. Like seriously, it was when I was getting some breakfast this morning. It was 59 degrees.
Cold and damp or cold and dry?
Cold and dry too. So it's actually, pleasant outside, and I can stay out there without, feeling like I'm going to
melt.
Yeah, or drown or whatever. So, yeah, fall. It's feeling like autumn. And yeah, I am pleased about this because, any reprieve from the fucking heat and the humidity you can get is a good one. Let's see. Outside of that, I don't think we've actually announced this yet, but we have finally qualified for Twitch affiliate.
Yay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. So we're probably going to wrangle some details about that tonight. Maybe. I suppose it depends on Mac's mood. If he has shit to do. But aside from that, yeah, we've met all the parameters there. Like, I suppose the other big thing is watching communities emulate themselves in real time, but maybe more on that on MSP.
Mm.
It's like in game review news, I'm the one who's handling the all three because code distribution is uneven. Like, I don't think we went over it. Nobody has like a full set of all the games this week. Petty Fan missed out on the Outlast thing, so no footage from that outside the trailer. Icebox Speedgunner was just 2, and Glow was 1. So it goes sometimes. But yeah,
I may see if I can pick up Glow, but I don't have a ton of money available right now, so.
Well, Glow is only like $5.
Well, that's why.
Yeah, I'm like, well, if $5 is making you hard up, I don't know.
It's more that weird things make me feel like they're not worth it sometimes.
Fair enough.
Like, there are weird reasons that I don't fully understand why I feel that way.
Anyway, I think that's about it for the news. So, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of tonight's broadcast. And this week we have, forgive me if I mispronounce this, Carmine Fantarella.
That's perfect, yeah.
Neat. Of Games of Edan? Edan?
Correct. Edan, yep.
Okay. And, right, so we like to start things off by finding out how you got interested in video games, both in a personal and a professional capacity.
Oh, okay. So I've just turned 40, so I've been around for a while. And when I was a kid, I used to mess around on Commodore 64, playing games like Ghosts and Goblins and little text adventures and stuff like that. And once I discovered I could actually make the computer do stuff by programming it, I got hooked. So that was sort of where I got hooked. And then sort of when I went through uni and stuff, I managed to get a PC, I can't even remember what the first one was, but it was probably something like a 286 or something. And just sort of got bitten by the bug right from the start. And then I went to university and studied electronic engineering, but I'd done a lot of programming before that. I did a few courses at uni, but not really specific to software or computer science. And then, when I left the uni and went out into the workforce, I worked for the Department of Defense and did some stuff with signal processing, radar signal processing, did a lot of programming there. Then I went and became a software contractor. I've also spent a number of years being a property developer. So I did all these things to fund myself so that I could actually spend time doing these creative things without necessarily having the stress of it having to make a bajillion bucks or I'd be out on the streets. So it was the slow burn, but from 20 plus years ago I was messing around, and it's just so happened that last few years everything's starting to make it easier for people to publish. There's tools out there. There's also distribution platforms that we can actually connect with audiences. When I first came out of uni, none of that stuff existed. Things like Kickstarter didn't even exist. So it's sort of all these things have come online in the last sort of 5 years, which has helped sort of get out there. But at the same time, you have to compete with a whole bunch of people as well. There's a flood of games coming out onto Steam every day, so that makes it hard as well.
Oh, yeah. It's a fairly frequent topic on this show because, well, we get a lot of indie devs, and it's like we are in the era of 5,000 Steam games, 40 games getting released a day, kind of.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And, one of the most pressing questions that faces, like every indie developer, save those who might have some sort of recognition, be it professional or a brand or what have you. How do you get noticed?
That's right. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and there's plenty of things there's plenty of information and videos from successful people who will tell you this is how we did it and this is what worked for us. But everyone has their own way of doing it, and everyone seems to have their own piece of advice about what worked for them and what didn't, whether they use publishers, whether they don't use publishers, whether they build up, whether they do a Kickstarter, whether they don't do a Kickstarter. There's all these different ways. And I guess, sometimes some people will say there's no luck in it, but sometimes you've just got to, do the best you can, put yourself in every place. And then sometimes there's a small element, I think, of luck that goes into it as well. It's like being any sort of artist, musician or whatever. You've got to make something good to start with. And you've got to present yourself and give yourself a chance to fail, because you're not necessarily going to hit the jackpot on the first go, and make sure that you can stay around for a while and have a few cracks at it. That was my sort of philosophy anyway. Just the slow burn. Again, that's not to say I'm lazy with trying to contact people. I do everything I can, but in the end, there's things that are out of my control that I just have to accept, and there's things that are in my control that I do my absolute best to do my best at, and make sure that when I look back at everything I did, I can be proud of what I've done, whether it's the work I've done or how I've dealt with the community.
Indeed. And how long have you been working on Icebox?
So about 4 years ago, before 4 years ago, I was doing software contracting, and I was working with some I'd written an engine, and I was using that for some projects that I was contracting out on. And then I sort of got to this point where I was like, wow, this is going to be sort of like a maintenance nightmare, trying to maintain in a sense, an engine, and start getting it on a whole bunch of different platforms. And it was sort of at that time when tools like Unity were sort of starting to sort of surface and get a bit more popular. And I investigated Unity at that time, and it was at that time that I was also building the house that we're living in now. So I was dealing with, I was project managing, doing everything, dealing with councils, doing all the architectural work, and a lot of the actual hands-on work. And that was sort of a 2-year project. So while that was happening all during the day, I was working on Unity at night, instead of just sitting in front of the telly. I'd mess around on Unity and build my toolkit, learn what Unity was good at, what it wasn't good at, what what I might be able to produce with it, and just building that toolkit of systems that I'd be able to use for future games. So that happened. And then about 2 years ago, we've got a bit of a game development community here, and I connected with a few people online, got some feedback, and realized that maybe this little bit here would potentially become the game. And so 6 months after that, so I'd sort of finished the house at that point. We'd moved in. We've got a young son, so there's a whole bunch of stuff. So this is all working around all of this other stuff. But 6 months after that, I took it to a convention here in Adelaide called AvCon, got some feedback from players, and worked out, the run and gun was the stuff that people really liked. They wanted to be able to basically shoot everything, shoot doors, shoot terminals, shoot whatever, and just keep running. So that's where it got honed. And then, it was just a slow, steady sort of chipping away, polishing it, iterating over it till I was comfortable with, releasing it to the public, which is where we're at now.
And well, my next question is, was it necessarily that love of shooting that led to the whole speed running 3D platforming idea?
Yeah, it was a combination of different things. Obviously, you've got to have a bit of an interest in what it is that you're making, because it's such a long grind making a game. You need to sort of enjoy the mechanics of the game, because being the developer, you're going to be playing it a lot. So and it can be very easy. There's lots of times where work gets grindy and there's nothing to show for it. And if you're not enjoying it, it's going to be easy to sort of just put it on the back burner or quit. So yeah, things like back in the day, I used to like playing games like Doom and Wolfenstein and those sort of old school FPSs. But then also when I was prototyping and coming up with ideas, I needed to make sure that I scoped the project sufficiently small, I guess, so that I could finish it. And that's where things like using some procedural generation, using some I guess this platforming idea sort of came around from just playtesting a few different game when I was prototyping the idea, just the double jumping and stuff like that, and having it basically, in a way, I think of it like a racetrack, a racing game. Whether it was instead of being in a car, you're sort of running, so you're racing, but you've also got this challenge of not just racing, but you have to be accurate as well. So it's a fine balance between running fast but being efficient and accurate. So I sort of just through playtesting and messing around with a few mechanics and also scoping a project so that I could finish it. This is sort of what evolved out the other end, and also taking it to places and getting some playtesting and feedback from people.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose another question is, have you ever heard of a game called Sium?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sium, Deadcore. Deadcore in particular was an influence back in the day when I was just sort of prototyping. Just that's not procedurally generated, but that's a true speedrunning game, first-person speedrunning game. But that was some inspiration. Sium came out sort of while I was developing it, so my idea had already sort of in a sense coalesced, and then while I was working on it, Sium came out. So I saw that there was there's a niche for this 3D platforming game. I guess with Sium, it's more, the levels are much shorter. Like you'll have a 10-second level, and it's obviously got a different aesthetic and music. It's the heavy rock sort of stuff. But in essence, it's running and jumping and trying to get to the end as quickly as you can, and you can fire fireballs out and stuff. So there's some similarities. Yeah.
From what I've seen, if one can call this a genre, I mean, maybe there's too few games right now, but yours is the only one that has a shooting mechanic in it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess Sium in a way has it. Like you shoot fireballs out your hand, but you're not really shooting fireballs at enemies per se. You're sort of shooting fireballs to activate platforms and stuff like that. Deadcore, you do have a single gun in the game, but that again is more for activating platforms or switches. But there are some sort of robotic enemies in that game, not humanoid or cyborg in any way like mine. They're much more sort of abstract, and they're just sort of there to, again, as another obstacle. In a way, my sentinels in my game, I just look at them as another obstacle in the game. So you've got fixed obstacles like jumps that you've got to make. You've got moving obstacles like laser beams or whatever, or plasma fields, and then you've got sort of AI obstacles like these sentinels.
Indeed, like it definitely does present a different kind of challenge because we played Sayum when it came out and we reviewed it. It's an interesting game, and the shooting mechanic definitely changes things up because the first instinct is to maybe run past them.
Yeah.
It's like, and
you probably can do that if you're playing like on one of the on a beginner or novice level, because the enemies are quite inaccurate. But ideally, my personal preference is to blend both running but also the accuracy, because if you do things like chain headshots together, the enemies also spew out a lot more of this one resource called tech, and that helps with your score, helps with using glitch and all that. So the game sort of rewards you not only for being fast but being accurate, efficient, and fast. So you sort of, it's a combination of all three. And I guess if you think of something like, even though it's nothing like this game, if you think of what's it called? What am I thinking of? Cross-country skiing in the Olympic Games, where they have to go cross-country skiing, but then they have to stop and shoot target. Biathlon, thank you. Yeah. So, you're running and you're racing, but then you have to slow your heart rate down. You have to concentrate. So it's a real combination of two different disciplines. And this is sort of like that in a way where, yeah, it's one thing to run fast, but if you've got no tread on the tires when you get to the end, you're not going to get a great score, or you might not even survive because the bad guys will just take you out. So you have to, over time, as you master the game, you start learning where the bad guys are not normally loitering. You sort of know where pickups are, and you become what I like to think of as a master of the game, because you start recognizing areas, even if you're entering them from different ways. The campaign has a fixed seed, so all the levels are they never change. So everyone's competing on the same tracks for the campaign. But once you unlock the Game Plus mode, or if you play the marathon levels or any of the quick games, they all have random seeds which you can type in, or just let the game pick a random seed, and that'll create a random level for you.
What about the challenge levels? How do they function?
Yeah, so those things, there's a daily and a monthly challenge where the seed is fixed, but it changes. So, for example, the daily challenge, that seed will change every day. So you can have a go at the level today, see how you go, but you might find that you just can't get on the top of the leaderboard. But tomorrow there'll be a different track, and maybe that'll be more favourable to your play style, or maybe you'll just you'll have a better go at it, and that might help you get higher up on the leaderboard. So that, for example,
the idea being that it's the same for everyone, but it's different every period.
Every day.
Challenges.
That's right. Exactly. So the monthly challenge will keep a fixed seed for a whole month. The leaderboard doesn't get reset. So you, for example, with the daily challenge, you try today and you'll go, oh, okay, I've only made it to 50th on the ladder. But you try tomorrow, different track, your play style, or the way you play it, the weapon you decide to use that day, just plays perfectly for you, and you get in the top 10. And so yeah, it's just a way for a bit of friendly competition with your friends. Even with the leaderboards, there's a friends leaderboard, so you can actually, if you don't care about global leaderboards, you can just have a look at how you're competing against your friends on Steam.
Right. So was there?
Sorry, go for it.
Was there any particular reason you went with like a Tron techno aesthetic?
I guess it ties in with the theme of the game, which is the fact that you're trapped inside this virtual, a bit like you're inside a Matrix type prison. So you're inside this computer system, and you're trying to escape. The prison is called the Icebox. There's an external hacker, this female narrator, that's helping you along. She's telling you things like, there's a big jump incoming, or I've uploaded some tech, and as you go along, she'll upload new weapons for you. So as you progress through the campaign, you'll unlock weapons. So it sort of ties in with the theme and the aesthetic of the game, that you're trapped inside this sort of computery sort of system. So it needed to have a bit of a sci-fi computery look. But then coupled with that, there are mechanical reasons, or both aesthetic and mechanical reasons as to why things look the way they are. For example, when you're playing a 3D platforming game, sometimes they can be notorious for not knowing where your feet are, hard to land on platforms. So not only do you have to make platforms big, but you have to make them especially visible. And the game has a day-night cycle, so when it gets dark, it can sometimes get hard to see where you're running. So that's why everything's lit. All the edges have lights on them. There's basically a square on every platform, so you know where the center of the platform is. And it just sort of, without the player knowing, it's giving them visual cues as to where they need to go. So there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why the final aesthetic ended up like this. But those three contributing factors, both the theme of the game, the gameplay, actual design, the mechanics, the requirements of why things needed to be visually obvious, and and just also having to maintaining scope, making sure that it wasn't too complicated, so that it would actually be finishable.
Indeed. And did Superhot have any influence on the game?
Again, that came out after my idea had germinated. So You know, it probably did in some respects, but basically same with Sium. You know, you sort of think, okay, there's a game there that's I'm going to be competing against, I guess, when I come out. So I have to make sure I have to differentiate myself in some way, or have a look at what the audience is for that game, and maybe try and, you know, connect with that same audience. Because if that audience likes that game, then maybe they'll like this game. So yeah, Superhot probably had some effect, not as majorly as what you might think, because like I said, by the time that came out, I was already in production and, you know, working on my idea. So yeah, probably subtly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I suppose that also bleeds into my other question. When did you come up with the glitch mechanic? So for those who haven't played the game yet, the glitch is basically allows you to slow down the game, and you know, you can make more jumps and dashes during that time.
That's right. Yeah. Again, you know, in that early prototyping phase, I messed around with a whole bunch of different things, and you know, in some of the early prototypes of this game, I had you being able to pick up a whole bunch of different power-ups as you went along. You know, things that sort of changed the way you moved, whether it made you go faster or jump higher or whatever. But that quickly got overly complicated. So I focused on one thing called glitch, which in a sense is like this get out of jail free card. Again, you know, 3D platforming can be notoriously difficult. If you're anyone who, you know, is comfortable around a mouse and keyboard, you're going to be fine. But the glitch mechanic was a way of not only giving you this, again, connecting with the theme of the game, which is that you're inside this computer system, and in a way, like Neo in the Matrix, you get to a point where you're actually controlling the Matrix you're inside. So it sort of connects with that theme, but it's also mechanically there because you know, it gives players that get out of jail free card. If you're quick enough, you can save yourself, and you know, you might not if you're using glitch a lot, you might not get great scores because you're burning up all your resources. But it's a great way for mastering the game. And then as you get better and better, you start realizing, man, I can do this game without even using glitch. So I'm going to get even better scores and stuff. So, you know, it is fun when you go into a room filled with sentinels and put it in slow-mo and sort of headshot everyone. You feel like a real badass, and you know, can pick up a lot of loot. So, you know, it's there. It's an option. It's what, again, it depends on how people want to play. If people are feeling a little bit in trouble, if they're getting overwhelmed in a fight, they can turn glitch on, and it's like a shield as well. So yeah, it's that get out of jail free card in a lot of ways.
And what are things like Zen mode and God mode?
So Zen mode is a mode where, again, I always think of it when I make a game as like, I've made this toy and now it's up to you to play with it how you like. So in this game, obviously, you know, you're running and shooting bad guys, but if you don't want to run and shoot bad guys and you just want to, say, just run and jump, you can play a marathon if you want, or any of the levels, and you can turn on Zen mode, which basically tells the game, don't load any bad guys into the world. So you don't have to worry about shooting bad guys. Now, you might not be able to post a score on the Steam leaderboards, but if you don't care about that and you just want to run and jump, then, you know, the game's there like, well, yeah, if that's what you want to do, go for it. God mode is a way of basically giving you the opportunity to not take any damage, for one, but also the bad guys won't attack you. So you can race through a level with God mode on, or take your time, and in a sense learn where everyone is, and then have another crack at it without God mode on, and you know, try and master it. So it's just a way for you to, you know, like, for example, my young son had to play at it, and he liked playing with God mode because he didn't have to worry about getting killed. You know, you just run through and do whatever he wants. So again, it's just a bit of variety for players, and it's up to them really then to decide how they want to take enjoyment from the game. So sorry, on that, with the Zen mode, so there's this 20 level campaign, but there's also these other levels called marathon modes, and they procedurally put the campaign all together into one level, right from your prison cell to the central AI, which is the thing you're trying to take out to escape the icebox. And you basically see, as you progress through, you'll see all the weapons, you'll see all the levels. I think whoever's playing right now has missed the checkpoint. So follow that little blue arrow and you'll find it. There you go. Go through there and then it'll load up the world. That's it. Now turn around and off you go. So what were we saying? So yeah, so the marathons is like this way of being able to play, like, you know, you can play a 25k marathon, 50k, 75, 100k marathon, which can take anywhere up to half an hour to 2 hours to play, with no loading screens, straight from your prison cell all the way up to the central AI. So, and you can do that if you want in Zen mode. So again, if you wanted to just put on your favorite tunes and do some running and jumping and get yourself into a Zen mode, you can play it like that and just worry about running and jumping and don't have to shoot any bad guys. And
will like levels unlock even in Zen mode, or do you have to play it with like in proper regular?
Yeah, no, I believe they'll unlock as soon as you finish a level. Like you're talking about in the campaign, if you finish the tutorial, as soon as you finish the tutorial, you unlock all the marathons, all the quick games, and you unlock the first level of the campaign. And then as you progress through the campaign, you unlock each level. With the game, you can, as you finish each level, whether you even finish it before the bonus time or not, you'll unlock the next level. So for those people who don't care about high scores or beating times, you can just take your time, finish each level, and just progress through the campaign. If you do care about times and scores and stuff, you want to try and beat that bonus time so you get some bonus score, which will help you on your leaderboards. But for those people who don't care about that, it doesn't matter. So I believe, and I'll have to check it, but I believe you'll still unlock the levels. But I can't, without going and double checking right now, I can't 100% tell you that. But like I said, even if you play the level normally and don't finish it before the bonus time runs out, you know, the clock will be at 0 seconds. That's fine. You just won't get any bonus time on your score, but you'll still unlock the next level.
I see. Oh, that's good to know. Like,
yeah, so you don't have the pressure. You know, for people who don't care about times and clocks, again, like I said, who am I to tell you how to derive enjoyment from the game? I try to make a toy, and then it's up to you to decide.
It seems like you've made it so that it's pretty easy to complete, or at least to play through the whole game. Even if you have to make it harder before you can really compete.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you're right. Sorry. So one thing I thought about sometimes when I try to explain it to people, I say it's like. Even though it's nothing like a game of golf, in a way it is, because I can explain to you the mechanics of the game in about 3 minutes flat, you know, running, jumping, shooting, right? But, and you'll pick it up, you know, pretty quick. But to master it will take you a lifetime in a sense, you know? So you'll want to try and play again and again, get better at it, play on a harder level to boost your score multiplier, start learning where everything is. And just like a game of golf where you'll play the same course over and over again throughout your lifetime, but each time you're sort of trying to get better because you learn where the bunkers are, you learn where the slope is and stuff like that. It's a bit like that. So, yeah, a novice will be able to play the game, or that's my intention, and still make some progress. But someone who wants a bit more of a challenge can challenge themselves in different variety of ways, whether they're trying to beat themselves beat their own times or scores on the leaderboards, or just trying to play at expert level where the enemies are much more accurate. And not use glitch, for example. They can play a whole bunch of different ways.
Right. Well, it's also important because there's an art to speed running, and you know, one of the big things about it is learning the lay of a level.
That's right. Yeah.
Like you're probably not going to be getting to the top of the leaderboards your first run through.
That's right. Yeah.
Like you need to. This is kind of what I've been doing. You know. Getting a lay of the level, and, you know, and getting used to everything, and you get better at it.
You're exactly right. Yeah, and that's in a sense why the campaign uses a fixed seed, so that way everyone gets to compete on the exact same track. Because, you know, especially if you are in a sense trying to speed run, you want to make sure that everyone's competing, that the parameters are all the same for everyone who's competing, so that way you can if you're better than someone else, you can say it's because you did better, not because you got a randomly better track. So yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where you'll go okay your first go around, but you might say, oh, you know what? I reckon I could have cut that corner back there, or I reckon I could have, now that I know where the bad guys are, I'll be able to headshot that guy, which will spew out heaps more loot, give me lots more points, and then I'll be able to save my glitch, and you'll try again and again to try and just get that little bit better.
Indeed. And I suppose another question is, how has the community been like since the game launched?
Well, the launch has been, like we were talking earlier on, it's hard to get noticed. So I've done my best to contact all the press and streamers and stuff, and the launch has been slow. The community, I had a community of people locally and also online and stuff. So we've got a small group of people, small community, and I keep, thankfully, I don't have any sort of outgoing costs. So everything that I get from it, I just pour back into it or, use for something else related to the project. So, yeah, it's going to be a slow and steady sort of burn, and the community is small, but hopefully, I hope that someone who plays it might get a score on the leaderboard and sort of want to play against his mate, see how his mate goes against it. So he might, word of mouth might be something, but that's all very slow and steady. Like I said, I've contacted hundreds of outlets and bunches of streamers, but it's hard to, especially if you don't have a prior relationship, it's hard to break through. So I will just chip away. That's the way I operate. Like I said, I've been around for a long time doing a whole bunch of things. So that's how I plan to do this. Just keep building projects and supporting them, and hopefully people sort of hopefully my reputation for building things of quality and being a stand-up guy in the community will hold me in good stead into the future.
That's a good philosophy to have, especially these days.
Yeah.
That does back in the question. Have you looked into porting this game to consoles?
Yeah. So in Adelaide we have, like I said, we have a small, reasonably sized game development community, and so some of the other guys that I regularly get in contact with are actually dealing with consoles like Xbox at the moment. So I sort of said that depending on how the reception of this is, it might dictate whether I do it, but I probably will investigate next year, seeing if I can make some steps towards that direction and just see if there's any traction. I think being a first-person shooter, it would mouse and keyboard seems to be its home. But so if I was to make it for console, I'd have to make a few more aim assists and stuff, just make it a little bit easier for, for people who play with controllers. It does support controller on the Windows version at the moment, but I'd highly recommend mouse and keyboard just for that accuracy.
Yeah, I've tried both. The controller's good for actual movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you start getting into targeting and shooting, well, it controls like an analog controller does, which is
you're right. Yeah.
Like.
And that's where things like it has a small amount of aim assist, but if it was to go onto a console, which is just controller, then it would. If you look at games like Halo or whatever, they're first-person shooter games, but they have a lot of. The idea is you want to give the player aim assist, like basically like if the crosshair goes anywhere near an enemy, it sort of magnetizes to the enemy without the player even sort of recognizing what's going on, and there's a bit of stickiness when your crosshairs over an enemy. There's a whole bunch of things like that happen to help overcome the inaccuracies that are intrinsic with a controller and needing that sort of twitch accuracy. So I've got the ideas, and I've messed around with a few of the ideas, but like I said, it was targeted for a PC game, and it was made for a mouse and keyboard sort of community in the first instance. But if it was to ever go to console, there would have to be much more assisting of the controller just to make it easier for that accuracy, especially if you're trying to headshot guys, you know.
Definitely. And is the game content complete, or do you plan on adding some new modes here in the upcoming months?
I'd like to think it's content complete, but again, other people have asked, and I was always of the opinion that depending on how the reception is and depending on how the community, supports and wants for it, I would be happy to do anything. So I've never left anything off the table, but it always comes down to scope and making sure that it's something complete. If someone was to say, "Oh, can you just add multiplayer mode in?" Just off on a whim, I'd say no. That'll double the size of the project. So, I'm happy to explore. It's being procedurally. There's always opportunities to add more sectors, more theming, more content. But it really depends. There's no point adding more content if no one wants the content that's out there. So.
Fair enough. Like, well, maybe things will pick up during the Steam sales.
Yeah, well, that's, who knows? Just slow and steady. I like I said, I didn't have any borrowed money. I don't have any debts outstanding. So everything that this makes can get put back into the game for advertising and also just, the rest of it. So we'll go slow and steady. That's how I've operated over the last 20 years with everything I've done. And like you say, there's Steam sales coming up. I've just released it onto other platforms. Obviously, Steam is the big daddy in the PC market, but we've got other platforms, like it supports Game Jolt and itch.io and Humble, so it's out on those stores as of today. So if you want a DRM free copy and a Steam key, you can go to any of those stores as well. But for example, Game Jolt, which is an indie site, has its own leaderboard ecosystem. So there's a version of this game that doesn't use Steam at all, and it'll hook into Game Jolt's backend. So for people who might have that, particular want, there's that option as well. Again, those things are all in the, down in the noise. Those sort of stores, they're all fighting for the scraps. So Steam's where it's at, but I'll pay this game the respect it deserves, and make sure that it gets looked after, and just see what happens.
Indeed. And is this just a Windows-only game, or is it available on Mac and Linux as well?
At the moment, it's Windows. The first release was Windows, just because I wanted to take baby steps and make sure that released okay. But it has been built for Mac, and as soon as we get off the call today, I'll be testing the Linux version. So those two things are happening as we speak, and they'll be then getting released to all the different all the distribution stores, Steam and the like, in the not too distant future. Probably what I'll do is release a beta branch on Steam, and invite interested people to check out the Mac and Linux versions, and then once we feel like we're okay, we'll release it onto the default branch.
And I suppose that a question I think I missed earlier is, are you like the sole worker on this game, or are there others on the project?
Yes, so I'm the sole developer on the game. I did everything, including all the assets, the programming, the music, the lot. There is a female narrator in the game, this outside hacker. That is someone who I got some help for. A lovely girl by the name of Amy, an American. But yeah, the rest of it I've done. Like I said, I've got a community of developers that would give me some feedback and stuff, or play test the game. I'm a sole developer basically.
I see. I'm like, I'm not sure if you've worked on any other game projects, so I'm not sure if you can compare what you've been doing here to something like that.
Yeah, I worked in other software engineering projects, not game specific. So I used to work in bigger teams on, in a small section of a project, or whether I was working on databases or some sort of signal processing or something like that. So I've worked in bigger corporations, bigger companies with bigger teams. I really enjoy what I'm doing now. I really like sort of being in control. Being in control of all these different disciplines. That's one good thing about game development. It gives you the opportunity to explore a whole different bunch of disciplines, rather than being in a big company where you are sort of a small cog in a big machine and you have to be very specific and you end up working on the same thing for years and years and years. This gives you the opportunity to work on a whole lot of different things, which can be overwhelming at times, but it can also be very rewarding creatively. But having said that as well, there's always a financial risk associated with everything, and so I didn't want to have this project have any financial pressures on it, or have a risk that if it didn't make X amount of sales that I'd be out on the street or whatever. So that's why I did it the slow and steady way, and built up a passive income doing a bunch of other things over the last 20 years, so that I could then explore this and hopefully build a long career without thinking. Like I see a lot of guys that save up enough money for 6 months of work or something, and they say, okay, we're gonna gamble it all on this project, and if it doesn't pay off, doesn't do what they need it to do, they're back out, contracting, or they have to give up on their dreams. So they have one crack at it, and then it's all over. So I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to give myself the opportunity to just keep going, and people might not find out about me on the first project, but maybe they'll find out about me on the second or third project, and they might want to look at my back catalogue. So I wanted to make sure I made things of quality that I can be proud of, and that maybe down the track people might, derive some fun from.
Mm-hmm. And, well, I think that's about it for my line of questioning. Anyone else have any questions?
I think I'm good. The game does look pretty interesting. I'm not honestly super into first-person shooters or speedrunning because it's stressful for me, but
yeah,
for that it looks different. I guess we were talking a little bit before about the length of some of the stages.
Yeah.
And yours are a little longer than some of the other ones, and I don't know. I guess that was intentional, I assume, since you were saying it as a kind of a contrast thing.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, they're longer levels, but they're not impossible. Your first go, you'll probably die a few times, but once you get good at it, once you get half an hour into the game, you'll be finishing levels without ever dying. So there is a differentiation. Like I said, Sium has like 10-second levels. This is more like a 2-minute level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for not phrasing the question very well. I've kind of had the idea bouncing around, and I couldn't figure out exactly how to phrase it.
No, that's okay. No, absolutely. No, that's a very valid question. You've got to differentiate yourself in a variety of ways, and also you have to keep with what you believe is the theme of the game as well. What you're trying to say with the underlying themes, and this one was you trying to escape from this prison, and this person's trying to help you. And I wanted to present the player with a challenge. When they first start off, they might feel like it's difficult. They might play it on an easier level, but very quickly you start mastering the game. Like I'd be at conventions and watch people who sit and play the game. I'll be on the other side of the room talking to people, and I'll watch from the other side, and within 10 minutes someone is just sort of running and gunning, and it's like, it doesn't take long for you to pick up the mechanics and start feeling like a master, but it'll take you a lot longer to really become a true master of it.
That makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
All mine have been answered.
I'm good.
All right. So, once again, Carmine, I would like to thank you for being with us this week.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. Any word on what your next project might be?
Yeah, there's a couple of things in the pipeline. Obviously, making sure this is well supported, but we've got some developers in Adelaide who have had a project kickstarted and probably releasing next year. There's a fair chance I'll be working on something like that, but also prototyping. I've got a whole massive list of ideas, so I'll start prototyping in the background for my next project, and we'll just see how we go. And also just what we do with this project, whether we try to take it to other platforms. Like I said, Mac and Linux is still coming. So yeah, there's a few things in the pipeline.
Indeed. All right. Good to hear. Good to hear. Maybe we'll have you back on the program when that group project comes, more into light.
Sure.
All right.
Anytime.
Yeah. Until then, the game is Icebox Speedgunner. It's available on Steam right now for $10, I believe.
That's right. Yep.
And be sure to pick it up today. All right. Petty Fan, play us to the next section. All right. So welcome to the topic of discussion. This week we are talking about the Wolfenstein franchise. Mainly because Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, is releasing this Friday. It's one of the big three releases, arguably like the biggest three releases of the year, alongside Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Origins.
Origins, I believe.
Yeah, it's like Origins. I've never played an Assassin's Creed title, so it's not a franchise I've ever really paid attention to. And of course, no, it's Assassin's Creed Origins, Super Mario Odyssey. That's what I was getting confused with. Yeah. So, and for it to be able to stand, pretty, on a pillar similar to both, Super Mario Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Origins is pretty impressive. Of course, that's only part of the reason we want to talk about this. It's not only timely in a sense of game release, but it's fairly timely in a sense of politics. And that is a strange sentence to say.
I could have sworn we dealt with this problem, 70 years ago?
Well, we did, and, those Nazis are dealt with. It's just new Nazis have shown up to fill the void, I guess. I mean, obviously they're not going to fill the actual Third Reich void. No matter how many marches they do through Charlottesville. Yeah, it's kind of impossible to talk about Wolfenstein without talking about the current political climate, especially since
I'd say alternately, it's been long enough that people are starting to have been able to forget history enough to be considering repeating it or trying to.
Right. Well, it's also, things have changed. Things have changed a lot, even since the release of Wolfenstein: The New Order. That was 2014. Now, that was only, keep in mind, that was only 3 years ago. I hope that gives a scope of how much shit has changed in just 3 years. And obviously the big reason why things changed was because of the election of 2016. Because of the orange sex monster currently in office. We are not going to be kind to Trump on this broadcast because
Donnie Boy.
I'm like, seriously, fuck him. You know, it's like if people have a problem with that, well, you know, go listen to something else. It's like, you know, and that gets around to the, you know, the actual marketing of Wolfenstein 2 has been sent, like, okay, the actual plot of Wolfenstein 2 doesn't actually have anything to do with the political climate that's going on, in the sense that they created the plot line about 2015, from what they said. And
also, it's not like a super out there limb of plot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, indeed. You know, it's like, you know, when it comes to alternate history,
Alternate World War II is one of the top
Yeah,
ones.
this is when it comes to alternate history, this is one of the alternatist.
sorry, just saying goodbye to our guest.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, alternate history, like the most, if maybe, I don't know, it's hard to gauge how popular something is in the overall, but yeah, one of the most popular splinters of alternate history is, what if the Nazis won World War II? You know, it's not exactly a new concept, you know, and indeed Wolfenstein: The New Order played off of that. You know,
It's just that somehow, like fighting not. Sorry.
Yeah, Wolfenstein 2 goes a step further, and actually introduces the KKK into the mix.
Oh.
Like, yeah, that's actually kind of been downplayed to the Nazi angle, but you're
because
dealing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, certain people in America are resenting the implication that the KKK would side with the Nazis.
Which is technically true, because, well, the KKK is an American terror group and all that shit, and, you know, they wouldn't take kindly to foreigners, kind of deal. It's one of those splitting hairs and hatred that nobody outside the groups really give a shit about. You know, it's like, in real terms, okay, yeah, the KKK aren't the fucking Nazis in terms of atrocities, but they're still recognized as a pretty terrible group. You know? So, anyway, and Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, is predicated on, you know, dealing with this Nazi KKK alliance, and, like, one of the leaders is a black female, you know, that kind of thing. You know, it's a game that's pretty designed to trigger fucking Nazis. You know, I don't.
And the marketing has been very upfront about the fact that it's about fighting Nazis, which of course some people find objectionable for some reason.
Well, it's like, fuck. Like, I'd say this game with its marketing campaign has been a better caller outer, let's say, of fucking Nazis than, like, fucking news organizations and politicians. I'm like, for some reason, like, not so much on the right, for obvious reasons, not so much, you know, like Donald Trump and his ilk, but I mean more moderate people are fucking afraid to call out Nazis because we need to give Nazis a platform, apparently. I'm like, no, we don't. I'm like, except, you know, if
paradox of intolerance.
Well,
you can't tolerate the intolerant, or stuff starts falling down because they break it.
Which is kind of bullshit, but in American terms, if you're a governmental institution, then yes, you do have to give the Nazis the platform. This has actually been a case of settled law. Like, you know, there have been actual court cases that say, yes, if the Nazis have something to say in a public forum, like a university that receives public funding, they cannot be stopped.
Doesn't mean people can't or shouldn't protest it, though.
No.
You just can't get violent.
Yeah. It's just if a if a private institution does that, guess what? You're shit out of luck. They can tell you to go fuck off, and you can't do anything about it. So, but given all that context aside, yeah, the marketing campaign has been hammering away not just at Nazis, white nationalists, what have you, the alt-right, but has been specifically going after Trump, because the marketing campaign has been make America Nazi free again. I mean, that's a pretty direct connection. Even if your game doesn't have any fucking thing to do with it, the marketing campaign is pretty much saying, yeah, fuck you, you guys are Nazis. So, on the one hand, I don't blame those fuckers for getting upset, but on the other hand, they are those fuckers, so let them get upset.
Yeah, if you're making them upset, it probably means you're doing something right.
Yeah, because you know what? I'm going to say, fuck this. Wolfenstein 2 is not a fucking controversial game.
Or it shouldn't be.
No, it isn't. It's only fucking controversial to fucking Nazis. And that's kind of where we're at politically. We have fucking Nazis who feel emboldened. They feel like they can walk on the fucking streets freely again. That's the issue. Because guess what? Wolfenstein is not suddenly about fucking Nazis.
It's always been about Nazis.
It's been about that for 25
those,
years.
Way all the way back to those pre-8-bit graphics with the little stick figure dudes with swastikas on their chest, so you can tell that it's Nazis you're shooting at.
Yeah, it's like this is a 30-year-old franchise. Hell, maybe going on 40. And Wolfenstein actually dates back to 1981 with Castle Wolfenstein, but we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, it's like Wolfenstein has always been about killing Nazis from the beginning. It's like every single iteration, the Nazis are fucking bad guys. And that wasn't going to change with Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus. And in fact, it's telling how fucked up the political situation really is when having Nazis in your game is seen as bold and refreshing. Because let me tell you, I've killed a lot of digital Nazis over the decades. Now, it's like how soon we forget that Nazis are a default bad guy because they were so fucking evil in real life. Even though they are fucking humans, they were that bad, you could shoot them and not feel bad about it.
I booted up the original Doom 3D and it has a PG-13 rating. I mean, yeah, that's from id, but...
Wolfenstein 3D.
Or, yeah, Wolfenstein, rather.
Yeah, so... The point of order is... It's not that shooting Nazis is controversial. It's that people who agree with the Nazi ideology are flipping their shit because, oh, right, the popular culture at large still fucking hates Nazis. Even if they agree with your nationalistic views on the sly, they're still not down with actual, Nazi iconography and, anything that directly associates with the fucking Nazis. So that's kind of where we are now. Where we came from, well, is a lot more maze-like. So I'm guessing nobody here, including myself, has actually played the original Wolfenstein games.
The original Castle Wolfenstein was on a system that I never had.
Right. So, yeah, people think Wolfenstein started with Wolfenstein 3D, and that's actually not true. It started with a game from a completely different developer, a completely different genre, and a completely different computer platform. It was a 1981 Apple II release called Castle Wolfenstein, or Return to Castle Wolfenstein. No, that's
just
the
regular Castle Wolfenstein.
Yeah, it's Castle Wolfenstein, and then a year later there was a sequel called Beyond Castle Wolfenstein, and that release is actually notable in its own way, because it's one of the first games to introduce stealth elements, and elements beyond kill bad guy, go here. Like you have to deal with like passes in the Castle Wolfenstein, and the sequel you can disguise yourself as a Nazi. It's actually pretty advanced stuff for 1982. We're talking about pre-Metal Gear here. It's widely considered to be the inventor of the entire stealth game genre. In fact, Wolfenstein 3D is kind of a regression in a lot of these mechanics because, well, Wolfenstein 3D is pretty simple.
Yeah, it's a straightforward shooty.
It's a straightforward first-person shooters where you see the Nazis, you kill the Nazis. And to show how fine people were with killing Nazis, the biggest controversy around this game, outside of the realistic violence, because as we've covered on previous shows, that was kind of that was a really new thing for video games. But the other big controversy was killing the dogs.
Yes,
because they're for 1992 they're pretty realistic depictions of German shepherds, and
animal cruelty is bad in K.
Yeah, it's like and even digital animal cruelty doesn't go down the same way killing people, especially killing Nazis does. And getting to Wolfenstein 3D, it's considered by some people to be the first-person shooter, and this isn't actually correct. It is no more the first-person shooter than the Super Mario Brothers is the first platformer, or Donkey Kong. Like the first-person shooters is like this 3D maze game from the 70s, and
done in completely 2D programming wise, just with 3D. Like by the time of Doom, there was some fudging there, but the original ones, you were in a first-person 3D perspective, on a completely flat map and stuff.
Well, and Wolfenstein 3D wasn't even id Software's first 3D first-person shooter. Like, there was Hover Tank 3D and there was Catacombs 3D. Both were more test beds for their engine than anything else. Also, they were like Softkey products, or whatever their old publisher was, that saw limited distribution, as opposed to Wolfenstein 3D, which fully embraced the shareware model.
Because that was the best way they could do it before digital downloads and stuff.
Right. And I do miss the shareware model, because you actually got a good chunk of the game for free.
And then you'd send the publisher or whatever X amount of dollars, and they'd send you a full retail copy.
I mean,
they kind of do that with some free-to-play things where there are level packs, but it's not quite the same.
Indeed. And in the case of Wolfenstein 3D, so it's either a third of the game or the sixth of the game, because it's actually it's actually two games in one. Like the original trilogy, the original 3 sets of levels where you escape from Castle Wolfenstein, you deal with mutants, Yeah, even in the first iteration, you were dealing with fantastical Nazi elements, and then the third episode, you go and you fucking kill Hitler. You know, not just Hitler, but Mecha Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then there's the Nocturnal Missions, as they were called, which is a prequel to the original 3 missions, and I don't remember a whole bunch about the story, because I'll be honest, Wolfenstein 3D hasn't aged well.
Wolfenstein 3D had a story?
Like,
I mean, they're from before first-person shooters were super developed.
yeah, but I mean, it was more developed than even say Doom, because you had a character with a face and a name. His name is B.J. Blazkowicz.
I thought he didn't get his name till Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
No, he had it since the first one. In fact, they retroactively connected Commander Keen.
Yeah, he's Commander Keen's like grandfather or something.
Yes, and also worth noting is the ethnicity of B.J. Blazkowicz. He is a descendant of Polish Jews.
Of course.
Well,
Well,
Blazkowicz is a pretty freaking Polish name.
Just to add to the layers of anti-Nazism, because I don't know if I've impounded upon you yet, but this game is pretty fucking anti-Nazi. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to conclude our talk here.
Yeah.
Because it's 10:30. So,
yep, we are having
Mike doesn't
MSP.
like it when we stay on too long, and we have news to talk about in between shows.
Yeah.
we're probably not gonna. We're probably gonna talk about that after. Like I imagine, Mac doesn't show up until like right before the show starts.
Or that.
Anyway, so with all that in mind, what do we got going on MSP?
MSP tonight, we are having JP of Egotastic Fun Time. He does a lot of videos on the Orville and whatnot, so this is basically going to be Mac's interview.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Like he seemed to be enthusiastic. About it. So yeah, it's probably just going to be him and them talking about the Orville. Anyway,
I'll try to contribute.
Yeah. Well, have you even watched an episode?
Nope. That's why I said try.
Fair enough. Anyway, coming up on MSP, we have reviews this Sunday. Okay, hang on. We just got a last-minute message. Mac apparently got no sleep last night, so
we're still going to be doing it. But
yeah, I'm like, he may slip into an unplanned coma here.
Oh boy,
like wonderful.
That's his own fault.
Yeah, that's
not
on
necessarily. Not getting any sleep isn't always your fault.
It's probably his fault.
I'm trying to be generous.
Fair enough.
We all know Mac.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back to Fragments of Silicon, coming up this Sunday, we have reviews on Outlast, Glow, and Icebox Speedgunner. And next week, hopefully, we will be having Julian Golop of Snapshot Games. We were supposed to interview him this week. Yesterday, but there was a last-minute emergency involving his kid, some illness. Hopefully we can do it next week. If not, well, then it's looking like December. We'll keep you updated as we are updated. Unfortunately, this also could be another we don't get notice of cancellation until the day of the interview, which is annoying to me because I have to get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning to make sure guests of European persuasion are there and are ready-ish to go. Anyway, on Wednesday, November 1st, we will be having Ed Orman of Uppercut Games, another Australian developer. Yeah, that's just a coincidence. Anyway, we'll be talking about their upcoming 3D roguelike called City of Brass. Now, I've seen some footage of it. It looks pretty good. It's already in early access. We might get some codes here. We might not. Like, I don't know. I haven't really talked about it because it's an early access game. We don't review those, but we do show footage. Anyway, with all that in mind, we'll see you for MSP, and until then, I wish you good gaming.